Well, it's nice having the youth in here, yes. We have our youth, welcome our youth group, everyone that is in here. We thought it'd be nice, to have, an exceptional week and have them in here. And anyway, we were at camp for 2 weeks. We had junior high camp for a week, and then we had high school camp for a week. And it was awesome. I'm going to use that word. It was awesome. What was really neat, in both weeks, we had students that came to the Lord, trusted Christ. And in the first week, the thing that really sticks out in my mind, and I asked Johanna if I could use her name, and she said, fine. Not use her name, but recognize her. So Johanna, throughout the week, talked to various leaders, and towards the end of the week on Friday, actually, talked with Donnie specifically and decided that she wanted Christ in her life. And so she wanted everybody there, which was really nice for all of us. So she wanted all the leaders. So Donnie rounded us all up. I was playing foosball and came in there and pulled us out of there, and there was Ty and Amanda, and my wife was there, and so we all went to a wagon, this big wagon, and we sat around the wagon, and Johanna wanted her mom there too. Well, her mom's here, so she got her mom on the phone, and it was on speakerphone, and so her mom was on speakerphone, and we were all around. And there's Donnie. And Donnie led her in a prayer, and she trusted Christ as her Savior. And it was so sincere, it broke all of our hearts. And so we're so happy for Johanna. And then in the high school week, I don't think there's a girl that got saved that's not here, that Phil was instrumental, particularly. And I just want to take a moment to recognize all of our leaders that went to camp. They really were a blessing to me. We have James here. In fact, would you guys just stand up so everybody can just see you? We have James and Donnie and for junior high and Phil. We also have Amanda and Ty Ritchie who went to junior high. And my wife got to go both weeks. And as most of you know, she's at home with headaches most of the time, right? And it just worked out that she could go. They gave her a special room so that she would have a place to retreat with her headaches. But she was able to participate for the most part. And so that's really was a blessing to all of us, and especially them. She didn't spend much time with me, but she got to spend a lot of time with all the students. So that was great. Here, I was supposed to have that for all that. All right, and then another thing that was a real important event for me was we had a time each day after chapel where we got together as a group. This was the high school group, and it happened well for the junior high. But in the high school group, we as a group came to a conclusion, and the way it happened is I kind of brought out a challenge that, hey, what if we moved forward with our group and started to actually minister to other people and really come together and take a step forward in this direction. And the response I got wasn't really what I expected. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect what I got. How's that? The response that I got was that we would like to do that already. We've been there. Would like to do that. We just don't really know how. And so I was delighted with that response, and they kind of put it back on me. So, help us get there. We would like you to help us to figure out how we can minister in a way that really matters. And then last of all, what was important to me is I said, well, let's make it something that will last for 1,000 years, because we can get involved with a lot of ministries that have value, but I wanted to make sure we included the value of eternal value. A value where, I think it's great that we help, for example, people that don't have food, but I want to incorporate whatever we do with the gospel, with the idea that not only are we going to feed you with something that will help you today, but we're going to feed you with something that will help you for eternity. So that's one of the exciting things that came out of our high school camp, is that we're going to be discussing how we can go about ministry that will last for 1,000 years. And the reason that's so important to me is that the fact is, life is just too uncertain. It's too uncertain for us to wait around to do what matters most. We often sit back thinking, well, the day will come, let me get everything in order, let me get the career going, let me get the family, we want to have a few kids first. But it just seems like when we address life that way, that it never happens. I don't know if you've experienced that. It seems like it's a common Christian experience that we're always waiting for something to happen before we get in gear and decide that we're going to start doing things that make a real difference. That we're going to start ministry, that we're going to evangelize, that we're going to do things that make the eternal difference. We wait and wait and wait. And the fact is, life is just too uncertain. Look at James 4:13. James is speaking to the Jews, and he kind of says this somewhat mockingly. He says, "Come now, you who say," and then he kind of explains, "Today or tomorrow, we will go into this and that town and spend a year there and do business and make a profit." So this is kind of a common statement that he's kind of saying that these Jewish merchants particularly might say, we'll just go over here and we'll go into this town. We'll figure out how we're going to do, make a little profit over there, and then we'll go over another place and we'll make some profit over there. And James is writing saying, that's foolish to make that statement. Because he goes on to say, so you don't know what's about tomorrow. What is your life like? For you're like a puff of smoke that appears for a short time and then vanishes. If you think that you can be so arrogant as to say, here's what I'm going to do, and that is my hope, James is saying, you are foolish because you don't know how long you have to live. You don't know. Your life could end today. It could end tomorrow. It could end in a week. It could end at any time. We don't know. For me, a major eye-opening experience happened back when I was 20 years old, back in 1980. Back in it was about 78 or 9, I met this kid, and his name is Richard. And he was a couple of years younger than me, and I met Richard because he came to a youth group, actually. And in fact, I'm trying to think, he even came to a camp. And I had been, at that point, really wanting to serve God, and for whatever reason, Richard just seemed like the right person. We kind of connected well. And so I kind of took Richard under my wing, and we started meeting together and talking a lot about the Lord. And soon after that, he introduced me to other members of his family, and also his brother Rocky, who wasn't a believer. And so Rocky and I started getting together, and he also trusted Christ as his Savior. And we went on also to meet, and he moved actually into the house right behind where we lived. And we got to be very good friends. But the trouble is Rocky really had a rough life. His circumstances were very rough. And trying to overcome those circumstances, although he had faith in God, he really found life a struggle. So one day he told me, while we were talking about the Lord, he said, this life is really like a vapor. He snapped his fingers. Next thing you know, it'll all be gone. And all that will matter is what I do for God. And that statement that he made really stuck with me. I thought, here's somebody I'm trying to mentor, and he says something to me that just really hit me deep. You are absolutely right. All that matters in this life is what we do for God. And the fact is, we don't know. Life could go any moment. And all that will matter is what we do for God. Well, to make that stick even further, it wasn't but a year or so later that Rocky, he had kind of got back into some of his troubles, which was drinking, and he was quite drunk, got in a fight with his uncle, and So this guy, so right here, this is two people. This guy here is Robert James, and this is his father. So this would be Rocky's grandfather, and that's his uncle. And so Rocky got in a fight with his uncle, and his uncle was teasing him, and he pulled out, and he went and got a gun. He pointed at him, and his uncle said, you know, you're such a tough guy, why don't you shoot me? And he did, and killed him on the spot. And so then his grandfather came running out, and I don't know what happened. This is just the story we got, but he shot at his other uncles, and he shot his grandfather and killed his grandfather. And then he shot himself. So I was about 20 years old, not quite 20 years old when this happened. And it changed my way of thinking. Because at that age, and the friendship that we had, and I was pursuing Christ in my life, it just made me realize that everything that he had said earlier was just so true. You know, I was just over and over reminded, this life is like a vapor. Next thing you know it, I'll be gone. And I was thinking of him. You are gone. And I you know, the funeral, you know, all three of these people were there, and I knew all three of them. And in fact, James, I had witnessed to over and over. He never really trusted Christ, and it was frustrating, especially at that funeral, because it was like, James, I talked to you so many times. And seeing Rocky, it was like, he's absolutely not here. He is gone. He is gone. And where is he at? And it brought a seriousness to my life at a young age that life indeed is like a vapor. And we could be gone at any moment. And all that will matter is what we do for God. So that whole incident brought me to thinking about how this life comes down to what we do that matters. And so I kind of got this concept going. You know, if it doesn't last for 1,000 years, then what does it really matter? What does it really matter? Because anything that really, really matters is going to last. And I thought, I don't want to do stuff in my life that doesn't really last. I want my life to count. It's short. Live it well. And so I decided anything that doesn't make 1,000-year difference, I don't want to do. And sometimes I was ridiculous about it. My mom laughs. She's in the front row. And what sticks in her mind is she wanted me to mow the lawn. And I said, what does it matter? In 1,000 years, who cares? You know? And, you know, and I was serious, though, right, Mom? She knew I was serious, so it was hard to answer me because I was like dead serious. I was like, what does it really matter, Mom? But I wasn't just like that with the work, by the way. I also did a lot of sports. I played basketball about every day. We lived across from the school. And I quit. I thought, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't going to last for 1,000 years, what's the point? I wanted to spend my time outreaching to my friends and studying and the Bible and things like that. And that was my mindset. And it was so clear at that point that if it doesn't matter for 1,000 years, then it doesn't matter. And although being young, I maybe couldn't quite get my arms around how that looked, my sincerity was there. And I think the truth about that statement is in there, that if it doesn't matter for 1,000 years, then really is whatever we're doing, does it really matter? In Psalms 90:10, it says, the days of our lives add up to 70 years or 80, if one is especially strong. But even one's best years are marred by trouble and oppression. Yes, they pass quickly and we fly away. So teach us to consider our mortality so that we might live wisely. So sometimes we might say, don't talk about death. Don't be a big Debbie Downer and talk about all this, But the Bible's saying, no, we need to think about death. We need to consider the fact that we will not live forever. Because that is what gives us the understanding about how we're to live today. It amazes me how we're able to ignore what is so plainly in front of us with death. I mean, this guy right here, this is actually from an ad for Bose speakers. And he's got his Bose speakers and he's noise cancellation. He can't hear the Niagara Falls. And so, huh?
I thought it was James.
Yeah. And so it does look like James. And it's, this is just so true with how we are with death, is it not? It's amazing that every one of us know in our mind that we're going to die. And yet we really do not act that way. We really do not live each day with truly in our heart that it's coming to an end. We keep pretending like it's never going to happen. It's like we're oblivious. And it throws me how we can be that way. I can't really figure it out. I think it's just psychology. You just keep ignoring what you don't want to think about. And we just go on, no matter how many people might die around us on the news or whatever, we just keep acting as though we're going to live forever. I don't know. I don't know the psychology behind it, but that's how we act. In 1 Corinthians 3, it says, "For no one can lay any foundation other than that which is being laid, which is Jesus Christ." See, I could see why we would ignore death if this wasn't true. Because if it wasn't true that we have Jesus Christ to look forward to, if it wasn't true that we're going to be with Jesus Christ forever and ever, forever and ever and ever and ever, if that wasn't true, then I would ignore death. Because I would say, really doesn't matter, because I have no future anyway. Make the best of what we have, right? It would make sense. But see, that is not our reality. And because it's not our reality, we have reason to consider our death. Our reality is that we are going to live forever with Jesus Christ. And therefore, when he goes on, we need to consider how our actions today will affect that future reality. It says in the 12th verse, "If anyone builds on the foundation," which was Jesus Christ, which is our salvation. So Jesus Christ, after we're saved, it says, if anyone builds on that with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, each builder's work will be plainly seen, for the day will make it clear, because it will be revealed by fire. And the fire will test what kind of work each has done. So this passage is saying that Jesus Christ is our salvation. But from then on, we build on that foundation. And we either build gold, silver, and precious stones, things that have eternal, lasting, 1000-year plus value, or we build wood, hay, and stubble. And when the day will come, it will be tested by fire, and the wood, hay, and stubble will be burned up, and what will last is the gold, silver, and precious stones. That has eternal value. And that is what I want my house in heaven to be made out of. So for that reason, we need to look beyond our death, because how we live now affects the eternity. That's forever and ever and ever that we have the gold, silver, and precious stones. Not just 70, 80 years. Forever and ever and ever. So to live as though this day's not coming, this judgment day, is nuts. We have reason to consider our mortality and take steps accordingly. It goes on, if what someone has built survives, he will receive a reward. If someone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss. But he himself will be saved only as through fire. So it's saying that foundation is Jesus Christ. It's kind of like they're made of cement, They will last. Jesus Christ is our foundation. It will last. But if our house is built with wood, hay, and stubble, it will be burned up. If it's built with gold, silver, and precious stones, it will go on forever. It's difficult for us to get our arms around the reality that we're talking about this morning. As much as we all know we're going to die, and as much as I'm talking about it for the last 20 minutes or so, it's still difficult for us to engage truly that we are going to die. I think it helps, for me anyway, when I go to a funeral. When I go to a funeral, and it's somebody that I know especially, I can begin to imagine where they are. And it helps me to come to a stronger grip that it's true. But even then, if I don't know them really well, that only has a limited value. I went to a funeral last summer, and it was somebody that I had known for a long time, but I didn't know him intimately. And I left. I was thinking about where he was. I was imagining. I didn't think he was a believer, so that was on my mind. I was thinking about my own mortality and my own future, and I left there with all that on my mind. I went by a fish store and was completely forgot the whole thing and was all about what fish I was going to buy. I mean, it was like 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and I was into fish. It was a dog-faced puffer I was after. And I thought, man, that dog-faced puffer is so cool. I mean, and I was serious. And I know that's how life is. I know that as serious as we are at times about what really matters in life, it doesn't take anything but just a dog-faced puffer or something else to pull us away and make us completely forget about what really matters. What really made the biggest difference for me, however, is that a couple of years ago, and anybody that in a similar situation, I think you'll understand, if you've had somebody close, because I was just describing somebody not as close die, if you've had somebody really close to you die, I think it gives us a much deeper perspective. A couple of years ago, I had a friend all my life. We were born like 2 months apart in the same church. We grew up together. We were best friends as kids. We spent time, like whole weeks at a time, at each other's house. And then as we grew older, we just had a natural bond, and we shared life together all of our years. And so I'm 51, so for 50 years, we spent life on the phone together. We talked through our issues. Even if we didn't see each other for a long time, we would immediately, hey, how you doing? And just right to the point. And so this guy, just a couple of years ago, he lived in California at the time, and he came out to see me, and wanted to come. He didn't even call. He just knew I would. Of course, he could just come, right? So he just came, and he calls me on the phone. He's stuck out here about an hour away, and I had to go help him. His truck was stuck, and I didn't even know he was coming. So I go get him, and he's not doing real well, and he's in my home for 2 days. I come to church, and I go home. I came to church here 2 years ago, went home to find him dead in my house. And what was it wasn't, a lot of people ask, well, it's hard to find somebody dead in your house. That wasn't it for me. For me, it was how close I was with him. Because we had spent so many hours. I mean, like 6 months earlier, I had spent a week with him because he had this flesh-eating bacteria, and we just sat around. We didn't go anywhere. And it was funny because everybody was like, are you going to go to the beach? Because they live down in California. They're like, no, we're just going to hang out and talk. And we talked for like 10 days it was straight. And we have talked like that always about life, about Christ, about God, about heaven. And the relationship that we had was an intimacy where we expressed our souls. I felt like I know his soul, his heart. I know his spirit. I know what he cared about. So for me to see him dead was to not only be sad that he's gone, but to know that that entity, Bob, his name was Bob, that entity, where is he at? I know he knows the Lord. And I know he's with God right now. I know that. And that, the intimacy we had has changed my heart because it has forced me to come to direct grips with the fact that God, if you are real, and where is Bob? Do you see what I'm saying? It moves from the conceptual to that I have to deal with personally. Where is my friend? And I believe with all my heart that my friend is with God. I believe that. And through his life, we discussed many, many times, all that matters is what we do for God. And so I know he stood before God and went through the judgment of fire. And what lasted is what he did for the Lord, the gold, silver, and precious stones. And that is our truth today. That is our reality. Our reality is less about this life because it's very short, and very quickly we move into a new reality that is much, much, much longer. And that reality is prefaced on this one, how we live this life. So I just want to encourage every single one of us to consider our mortality, to consider what we are doing with our life, to consider that it's worth any sacrifice we might come against to build on our foundation gold, silver, and precious stones. Let's pray. Dear Father, I just pray that we would be convicted down to the core, Lord, to choose to follow you. Lord, that we would struggle each day to see the reality of life, to not let the details of this and all the circumstances pull us away from really understanding and living according to what we know really, really is true.